Ashley Mailloux and Mike Beer here with the Daily Racing Form. A little bit of a different race of the day for this Sunday, December 22nd. We're actually going to look at the nightcap at Gulfstream Park. We know the championship meet has been underway for a little bit here now, Mike, but 2-year-olds turning 3 soon. We're going to look at a turf race. As I mentioned, it's the 10th on Sunday at Gulfstream, mile and a 16th on the grass, and a full field as we'll take a look at the slate here. 12 entered, and you have firsters, you have a couple with the surface switch. I mean, you kind of have what you would expect for 2-year-olds kind of gearing up for their next year.
Yeah, I mean, just a bunch of either first-time starters or very, very lightly raced fillies in here. You have the 6 and the 9 actually both have a good amount of experience, for good connections, and it kind of feels like they're the logical starting off point as far as handicapping goes. So then you got to decide how you feel about them and whether or not you can make a case for one of the firsters or more lightly raced guys.
And some of these horses are switching from the dirt, stretching out in distance. And as we take a look at the Timeform US pace projections here, a couple of horses might be in the mix. You don't know what the firsters are going to do, but the 2 in all probability for Mark Casse comes out of that turf sprint in November, where this one was keen from the gate. And even a couple of others you could see be in the mix. The 8 Satin Stone has been sort of chasing the pace on the dirt at Gulfstream. And then the 9 Mo Cookies, I don't know what to make of that one. Obviously has been forward at the mile, but has been trying to chase the pace and been pretty far off of it in those turf sprints most recently.
Yeah, the pace was pretty hard to decipher. I do think the 2 is pretty likely to go from an inside post to Irad takes over, stretching out, coming out of a pretty fast-paced sprint. All right, I can see that horse going. Outside of that, I'm not really sure how this pace is going to play out.
We'll jump right into the field here with a first-time starter, the number 1 Gift Giving, Kenny McPeak, and Raylu Gutierrez teaming up with a first-time starter by Gift Box. Has a slew of works, Mike, down at Gulfstream Park. To me, none of them really eye-catching, and the pedigree, at least on the mare side, there's not a ton to go by. She was unraced.
Yeah, the Dam, exactly. Dam didn't run. She has 2 prior foals. One of them is a winner on the grass. So this horse, I guess, has that going for her. Gift Box is kind of a new sire, actually. I don't know. I mean, he's got he's only 5 for 76, 5 for 78 with first-time starters. So it's not like these horses are super precocious. But McPeak is pretty good with first-time starters. He can get them to go long. This horse has a pretty good post position on the inside. I thought there were at least some things to like.
The number 2 in all probability we looked at in terms of the Timeform pace projections could be in the mix early. Comes out of that turf sprint back on November 9th at Gulfstream Park and chased the pace. And I know this one, Mike, I guess flattened a little bit. I thought it was a fine debut for a horse that, knowing that Mark Casse firsters can take a lot of action, didn't take a lot of respect at the winnows, was 11-1.
Yeah, it's true. Didn't really get bet that hard. Did have some speed in that race, but was up on the pace with the winner, the eventual winner of that race. It was just absolutely no match for that horse. And it just sort of got left behind a little bit there. I mean, I guess she didn't totally give way. And there's, at least it's a distance pedigree. Actually, I wish there was more turf in the pedigree, but at least she is bred to stretch out.
The 3, Olivia Valentina, another first-time starter in this field, a daughter of Malibu Moon, who, and again, similarly to the other first-time starter, has a slew of local works down at Gulfstream Park. And on the mare side, Tia Maria, she didn't do anything in her 2 starts, but I'm kind of looking at her siblings. They've been a little bit on the hard-knocking type. The best one of the couple that have made it to the races, Founders Day, has had success down at Gulfstream Park on the synthetic.
Yeah, another one. The Dam, wasn't much, but she's had 2 foals to race. They're both pretty good. They both won on the grass. So she has that going for her. Personally, actually, I'm Malibu Moon. I'm not a huge fan of the Malibu Moons on the turf. But we'll see if this horse handles service, because I thought there were things to like. This horse breezed 10-2 in April before they purchased her. And I thought she looked good in that breeze. And this is an underrated trainer. I mean, his horses will really run. The one little drawback with him is over the past 5 years, he's had 46 first-time starters, and none of them have won. So it feels like he does give them a race, but this guy knows what he's doing.
The 4, Windflower, curious to get your thoughts on her, a daughter of Constitution. Mare was obviously successful on the racetrack, a multiple graded stakes winner, but Windflower and her 2 showing so far, they were very similar, both in New York, and they were on the dirt. I guess maybe the turf is going to wake her up as well as the stretch out in distance.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, the problem, she's really bred to be pretty good on the dirt. And so far, she has not been. I don't really like either of her races. I mean, I guess if you want to give her the benefit of the doubt, she's landed in 2 above average maiden special weight dirt sprints in New York. She just hasn't really done any running. I mean, the first start, she was off to a terrible start in her debut, so I can be forgiving of that one. I really thought that she would improve last time with blinkers on, and she did not.
The 5 Henry Gondorf here, another one in the field for Mark Casse. Does have that race under the belt where this one really didn't show anything, wasn't really comfortable early on, and backed out of that race, going to switch this one to the turf and stretch out. I mean, this is an angle I mentioned with the other Mark Casse. I feel like, kind of seeing if they take tote action in that first start is sometimes telling. Didn't take tote action, but Casse with his second time starters, especially in Gulfstream, typically means business.
Yeah, and he's had such a great year with his 2-year-olds in 2024. Also, I don't know, man. I wanted to see this horse do at least something in the debut. I mean, she really didn't run off. She was very green in the early stages of that race, so maybe she just really needed a start up close in the pedigree. She's got a couple of half siblings who are really good dirt horses. So there's talent in this family. The second generation, there's turf there. So, I mean, there are things to like. I mean, this horse showed nothing on debut, but there are things to like about this horse, especially if she's going to be a price again.
You mentioned the family. Great stuff being one of those horses, as well as a horse by the name of Coffee in Bed, who pretty successful in the career and has some nice graded stakes wins as well. We'll move on to the number 6, Snip Snippety Snip. We'll actually jump to a replay here of this filly, a 2-year-old by Gervin, who, when you watch her from the break, I mean, she stumbled badly from the start. It wasn't horrible compared to what we've seen, but I think it was enough to cost her position. And the reason I showed this replay, Mike, is I felt like then she was sort of tugging on her rider, and she's going to make a move right about now to kind of make her way rolling. And then as we flip here to the stretch run in here, it's another thing where I feel like she's just going to flatten out. And I think she might have had a trouble trip when I all sort of pieced that together, and maybe it worked against her.
Yeah, I think that might be the right way to look at her. She's getting a little tired here late, but she's not really giving in. That's a really good horse that beats her there. The winner of that race for Motion came right back to win a stakes race in New York. That horse is really good. And the other thing I think that is just worth noting about that start, not about that race, not only the bad stumble at the start, actually, but this horse, you could see after that, just sort of sat 3 or 4 wide throughout. That was a day on the inner turf at Aqueduct where you wanted to save ground. The horses that did really well on all the turf races that day, they saved ground. This horse did not get to save any ground in there. That might be a very underrated performance.
And I just personally don't like when horses kind of stumble and then they put themselves into a position where if it would have gone smoothly from the beginning, they probably would have saved some energy in the process. The number 7, Unlimited Spending, another first-time starter in here, Rapoli Stables, Todd Pletcher, with an interesting type. Obviously, we see these horses typically trained down at Palm Beach Downs, has that slew of foundation. And I guess from a pedigree standpoint, maybe a little intriguing, but a stallion that we really don't see the offspring racing here in North America.
Yeah, you don't see hardly any of them. And then you get to the Dam, and of course, the Dam Unlimited Budget raced for Rapoli and Pletcher and was really good, but she was a dirt horse. She was not a turf horse. I don't know. She's just one of those horses who I feel like will get bet in here kind of just because, and I won't be surprised if she runs well, but I don't know. Pletcher doesn't have great numbers with 2-year-olds debuting in turf routes. I mean, some of them will win, but they have to be really good. This horse just wasn't for me, just because I felt like she wasn't going to be a price. And I thought I had enough things that I didn't like about her.
You bring up first-time turf, but you also bring up the angle of just kind of Todd Pletcher and his numbers. Debuting greater than a mile is not necessarily the strong suit for the barn as well. So maybe some holes to poke there in the first or Unlimited Spending. The 8 Satin Stone, 2 races under this one's belt for Jenna Antonucci and Don Alberto Stable. To me, very similar trips in both, and just kind of didn't have anything left to offer. Now they're going to stretch out a little bit more. And the big thing, I know that race last time out was stretching out to a mile, but gets the 2-turn test.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you didn't improve at all, though, when they gave her more distance to work with last time. I mean, to me, it's just another horse who hasn't run well in either of her starts, and now they'll switch to the turf. And I mean, I guess there's a little bit of turf in this pedigree, but not enough to get me interested.
You mentioned earlier the 6 and the 9, probably the horses to look at. The 9, No Mo Cookies, we'll take a look at her most recent effort. It was at Gulfstream Park. She was cutting back to 5 furlongs. And curious to get your thoughts here on the trip. Drayden Van Dyke was aboard, and she's going to try to skim up the rail here. And it looks like, she's making up some ground. She's not flying. But to me, it's right about here when she's going to draw alongside the 5 that I just feel like she does run out of a little bit of room, and right about there. And she still kind of carries on and gets third.
Yeah, once she finally got some clear running down there, it did seem like she had some horse. So yeah, it just felt like she couldn't get any momentum in the upper stretch there. And then when she finally got room, she ran at the end of that race. They're back on relatively short rest here to stretch her back out again. Actually, I feel like I can look at all of her starts and sort of make excuses for her, particularly the Kentucky Downs race. The only time they went longer, that was a really strong pace that she was keeping up
Mhm.
close to, and then she got tired through the stretch. So I'll be forgiving of that one. 2 starts back at Keeneland, I don't know what she was doing, but she tried to blow the turn in that race, and really cost herself. I think that's why the blinkers were on last time. And then she had a little bit of a trouble trip in there. I could dress her up very, very easily if I wanted to, but she's also the kind of horse I don't think I'd be interested in at any kind of a short price.
No, and we kind of talking about this race without the line. I think that's really sort of
Yeah.
a huge either selling point or a point against her. And kind of was going to go with what you're saying. You either have to be in the mind frame that you're going to make another excuse for her, or you're going to say, you know what, I'm just not going to bet her at all. And I think for me, maybe the selling point is just going 2 turns on a normal turf course. A mile
Yeah.
at Kentucky Downs is not Gulfstream Park. So
No.
maybe she'll get a good trip close to the pace, and maybe the pace won't be as hot as what she encountered at Kentucky Downs. To her outside the 10, Zenith, a daughter of Munnings, who has 2 starts under her belt. Now, she debuted on the turf at Delaware Park, and I thought was okay third. She was the favorite in there. It was fine. She was kind of green from the gate and needed a little bit to get going. But more recently, off that little bit of a freshening, I just didn't really like her synthetic performance.
Yeah, I didn't either. I wonder how much leeway we're supposed to give her for the synthetic trip race last time. Maybe she just doesn't like that surface, but she got a good trip in that race and didn't run well. I thought her debut was okay. Maybe a little green in that race. It's worth noting, too, they just sort of took her back to last in that race, and the horse that won the race was a stablemate of hers who was on the lead the entire way. I don't know. I wanted to like this horse. When I first went through the race, this is the horse that I really wanted to like, and I thought I would land here. And I ultimately didn't get there. I don't know how you feel about her, Ashley. I don't know. I have really mixed feelings about this filly.
It's tough. I mean, I felt like it was tough to assess her debut. And then, they put her on the synthetic at Gulfstream. And obviously, you have to go with the spots that you can get, whether it's the synthetic or the turf, especially during, that time of year. And I just would have liked to seen a little bit more from her. I don't know. I just felt like she didn't offer much in the stretch there. And I don't think she had a ton of problems in that race. And maybe you're right. Maybe she didn't like the synthetic, but she was a horse that I sort of had to just bypass in here and say, you know what, I'll just take a wait and see approach. The 11, Ginger and Spitesy, second time starter here by Omaha Beach for Ian Wilkes. Now, her debut, she offered nothing. It was on the dirt. It was sprinting at Churchill. They did go fast in that race, and now you can see she's going to switch surfaces, but this is an angle for the barn that just simply isn't their strongest at all.
It really isn't. And this horse, not only didn't do any running in the debut, but took zero money in that race, too. This went off at a huge price and just didn't show anything. I think those are both sort of bad signs. There's a little pedigree, though. I mean, the Omaha Beaches, he's been very versatile. He can get horses that sprint. He can get horses that route. Really, the talent in the female family is on the synthetic. But I don't know. There's enough pedigree. If you just wanted to take a long shot in this race and hope that a horse could really jump forward, maybe it's this filly.
Yeah, you talked about the pedigree. Okratos being the half sibling has been pretty strong on the synthetic up at Woodbine throughout the careers, and maybe not a top, level horse, but has just at least been consistent and gotten those wins. We'll round out the field here, though, with the 12, Phoenix of Wit, who I think, as we take a look at that most recent effort, maybe a horse that I'm willing to make some excuses for. As you watch this one break from the gate, no real trouble from the gate. I just felt like looking at her, she was the number 5 in this field, just really is not put into a position at this point. She's kind of lazy towards the back of the pack, and she's still a couple of pass off the rail. And then as you watch them turn for home, Mike, that's her all the way on the outside of the screen. And she's just got so much work to do, but at least she is trying and she's making an effort to make up some ground.
Yeah, I felt the same way about it. I mean, they just rating the break like that with a filly like her and putting her so far behind the 8 ball at the start isn't a great sign. Then they try to come wide off the turn. She actually stays on pretty well at the end of that race. I didn't hate that performance. She's kind of ran a similar race first time out, had trouble at the start, winds up chasing last, take her wide on the turn, and then let her run through the stretch. I feel like she's shown a little bit in both of her starts, and they're on a totally different surface. She is bred to be a turf horse. I mean, both sides of her pedigree are grass and distance. I feel like she's got post 12. That's no bargain, but I think there's a real chance she jumps forward in this race.
No, it's not a bargain. And if they're going to make the same sort of decision with the trip, I think
Yeah.
I'm more willing to allow that trip from post 12 when she had post 5 and she wasn't in post 12, right? She could have saved ground, but still made a move forward. And they just decided to drop back and then save ground. I don't think it really worked for her, especially coming out of a sprint. I would have thought she would have been a little bit more close to the action going 2 turns for the first time. So that's a field of 12. Race of the day this Sunday at Gulfstream Park. Don't forget free past performances on DRF.com for each of our races of the day. top pick time here, Mike, as we look at this field. And you mentioned the 6 and the 9, maybe the horses to play, but you're going to go to the outside runner, the 12, Phoenix of Wit.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted somebody else. I just sort of suspected either the 6 or the 9 would be the favorite. They'd probably be the 2 favorites in here. I guess we'll see how the wagering all plays out. Among those two, I kind of preferred the 6 to the 9, but I didn't really want either one of them. I wanted somebody else. I think the 12 has more things going for her than some of the others. Again, post 12, I don't love, but I really like her pedigree. I think she's run fine in her first 2 starts, and I think she could really move forward here.
Yeah, that's what sort of hindered me on Phoenix of Wit is the post. I would have probably used this horse maybe in the top 2 otherwise. I just didn't love that for her. But I went to the 9, No Mo Cookies, who I know has the foundation and maybe has some excuses at some point, though, has to put it all together. And I'm just hoping going 2 turns on what it to me is a pretty normal turf course in terms of figuration, that she can be close to it, where maybe the 6, as we've talked about a little bit, don't know what the tactics are going to be. My guess is going to be to try to get her in a good position early, and we'll see if she can kind of handle things closer to the pace. But I'll go with the 9 here, 9, 7, 6, 12 for me, the 12, 6, 9, 3 for Mike. It's the Sunday race of the day for the Daily Racing Forum, race 10 from Gulfstream. Good luck.